Hi guys, Andy End, spoken label, back in the house on a Sunday evening. Yes, a late one today as well. I've got a wonderful lady overseas today, Michelle Steiner. Now, Michelle's not, I would term as a straight writer and as a novelist and poetry, because she's not. But she's got a fascinating story I want to talk to her about today. And she will be reading out some extract of her work in the second half. So, Michelle, obviously, first of all, then, for people who don't know you, would you like to tell everybody, obviously, who you are, where you come from, and where your story started off at? We'll do it that way.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Annie, for having me on here. My name is Michelle Steiner. I live in the United States with my husband and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow.
Meow.
And yes, and I'm a disability writer, advocate, and photographer. And I have my own blog, and I work as a paraeducator in a school with students that just need a little bit of extra help. And my story, all of this started years ago when I was first diagnosed with having a learning disability when I was in kindergarten.
Yeah, that's just really, really interesting, because that's why I could really relate to this, because people obviously know I've got a number of health conditions myself. Most of mine were picked up until I got to adulthood. And I'm not going to tell people your age, because I've been a gentleman and a lady never reveals her age. But you obviously should we say you're not 21, right? But
No.
but it's interesting, really, like, is that you told me before off mic, is like all these are picked up as a child, but not everybody in your school was picked up on, were they, with the conditions you've got, or any sort of conditions, really?
Sure. I have a learning disability,
Mm,
and my learning disability is in math, dyscalculia or
mm,
dyscalculia, depending on how you pronounce it. I also have visual perception
mm.
issues, but those are not in my eyes. That is in my brain. And I also have limited hand dexterity. And the interesting thing about a lot of these things, we didn't find out about the limited hand dexterity till I was an adult. And then things just started to really click, like, oh, this is why I'll drop things out of my hands. This is why my handwriting is not very good. And they didn't even really diagnose, well, with learning disabilities, it was more of an umbrella term when I went to school. They knew I wasn't going to be a mathematician, but they didn't call it dyscalculia. And we knew that I was having issues with my eye-hand coordination, but we just weren't sure of what the extent of that was going to be as an adult. But as a young child, I was starting to have a lot of symptoms with not being able to tie my shoes. Doing dot-to-dot pages was particularly difficult for me. And anything math related, counting, just knowing how numbers worked, that was really hard. And I was really lucky that they did pick up on that, because a few years prior, they were having legislation for people with disabilities to get services in school. But there were still kids that went under the radar, or if they did get services, we just lumped everybody together in learning support, and it wasn't really tailored to people that had other conditions.
Yeah, I think it's a different generation, really, isn't it? Because, like it said, like it's certainly like in English teaching in England nowadays, they're much more aware in situations like that. And from what I guess out of your generation, like I said, we're the same generation basically. And I'm still not going to say your age, because it's not I'm not too much of a gentleman. But yeah, you're right. It's when I was at school, they didn't pick up on things like that. And I know from chatting to my mum, like there's nothing wrong saying it, because my mum's got a lot, 2/3 of the health problems I've got. And
Right.
as she was a child in the 50s and 60s, and your mum and dad would have been the same time themselves. But they just didn't know about stuff like that then. But yeah, really, really interesting. Like well, I asked you before off mic, and you said before, like it was like, because in my case, I know it's my family side, it's hereditary. Is this hereditary on your family? Is it, or are you not really sure on this?
We're not 100% sure. I haven't had family members with the official diagnosis of learning disability.
Hmm.
I've had a couple couple family members have said, man, I think I have a learning disability. I can't get math, or I really struggle with that. Some of the older ones, when they didn't do a lot of the knowledge or the testing. But I have two nieces, and they're doing well with their cognitive skills and things like that. They're doing well in school. Well, the one hasn't entered school yet, but she seems to be right on track for what she's doing. And my other niece, yeah, she got an award for math a couple of years ago. She didn't get it from me, but
that's nothing to do with you then, is it?
Yeah. And other family members, they seem to have gone through it well. So I'm not sure if this is genetic or if it's just this is just definitely just one of those things that this was my lot in life. And yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, the other point I'm going to raise in this is because I'm not religious at all, to tell you. And I respect people that are, I'll be honest with you in that. But a friend of mine said to me years ago as a Christian, and she said at the time to me, and my mum said this as well, late mum, was like, God's give you these disabilities. He wants you to be able to prove to you can fight through everything like this. Now, it showed from your stories I've heard from a couple of podcasts, you're a fighter. You really have. You fought everything you really wanted, haven't you? And it was like the job you're doing, for example, you're teaching, you're working in like schools, aren't you, and stuff like that. Now, what made you want to go in that direction for a career?
One of the things made me go in that direction is I knew that I wanted to help other students that had disabilities. I knew from the time I was really young that I loved to write. I knew that was one thing I loved to do. And I also knew I wanted to go to college and work with students in some capacity. I wanted to be a teacher, but I knew that a lot of the testing that's involved with that in the classes, I just didn't think that was the right way for me to go. And I just decided I'm going to go in and study early childhood education. And I knew that I wanted, and it just turned out that I didn't need to be a teacher, but because I could still make a difference being a teacher's aide or a paraeducator, as a lot of people refer that.
But no, Joe, I think it's good when you can find a career that suits you to a team like that. Because I worked 10 years in the back office of a course, and it clicked to me. Really clicked to me. But that's why probably I'm struggling a bit nowadays. But anyway, that's still another day. That I get completely with it now. You've already said before, and so I'll talk about more really, I guess. We're a writing podcast for Open Lane. Is you've been writing since you're a child, haven't you? Now, obviously nowadays, like the work I yours is like blogs or non-fiction posts. What were you writing when you were a child?
I think I can remember my very first story was about a dinosaur.
Yeah, my poem was about a dinosaur. It was, and it got me detention.
Oh, so. Awesome! And I can remember my dad reading it and him saying, "Wow, this is pretty good." And I thought a light bulb just went off. I actually have something that I'm good at, because I was really discouraged before that. Everything seemed like I really put in a lot of effort and I tried. I just couldn't be good at anything. And that was one of the first things. And I credit a lot of the reading. My dad would read to me every night, and my family really did a lot of that with me. And from that point on, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go forward. I'm just going to write. So I wrote a lot of things as a kid. I think I wrote a lot of bad poetry.
Oh,
I can remember.
You do, right. I've still got all mine. That's the worst thing about it. I've got all mine on like A5 hardback books. I've got about 62 of them now, and I've included ones that I was 10, and they're awful, absolutely appalling.
I was in a writer's group, and I think I brought that bad poetry in with some people that were a couple of years older than I was and a lot wiser. And they said, why don't you write about your experience with having a learning disability? And I thought, oh no, that's a little too personal. But when I finally took that advice and I got that first piece published on the Mighty all those years ago, that just opened up so much for me. And just that was one of the most healing things I've ever done.
Now, that's what I find really interesting. Like you're a blogger, you're really a blogger nowadays. But that first piece at the Mighty, was that like non-fiction then really what you went into, was it?
Yeah, so it was. In fact, it was about an ordinary task. That was one of the prompts that they had that I struggle with. And the ordinary task was trying to unlock and lock a door with having limited hand dexterity. I mean, for years, that was something that locks have always been a problem. I just remember
Join the club. Because on the flat, me and my wife forgot we're in like a block of flats behind. You have to get through 3 doors to get to our door, and the third door has got a second block on the bottom of it. I can never get it right. It's Amanda comes along, she clicks it in 2 seconds, and I'm spinning around for 5 minutes trying to get the thing right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, trying to get that just to get it to where it needs to be at. And I can just remember that was just the experience of trying to unlock things. And it's always been a challenge. I can remember one apartment I lived at, I couldn't unlock the door, and that was a real challenge. And the landlady didn't really understand it very much. She's just like, well, here's how you do it. And I'm like, well, I can see that, but it's just not working. And even when we got our new house, it could still be a challenge for me. And when I wrote that, I just remember I got a lot of people that said, oh, that's been my experience too. Or I met people that I thought I was the only one that struggled with that. And I also began to write more articles on having a learning disability and just some of the challenges I still face as an adult with having one.
Brilliant. Have you found then, since you started doing this first article with the Mighty, has your approach to your writing these articles changed?
In some ways it has changed. I can remember when I first started out, I just did more of my experiences, but I didn't do as many metaphors. And now I try to do more metaphors with nature. And I've also been taking a lot more photographs, because I've had a lot of people that have told me, oh, you bring out details in a flower that other people might miss. So sometimes when I'm on my walks, because I can't drive, I'll be able to take pictures of flowers. I'll be in the car with my husband. I'll say, did you see that? And he's focused on the road, and I'm more focused on, what's going on outside. And I get that chance to take it back and post it. And sometimes I'll go on there and I'll be able to put them along with my articles.
Really? Yeah, because a great website you've got. It really is. I've had a good reason this afternoon, Michelle's Mission. So what made you want to do your own website then, Michelle's Mission, leading into the blog?
Sure. I wanted to be able to reach more people. That was definitely something I always wanted to do. And I just wanted to be able to do that. And I also wanted now with my new website, I have the opportunity that we can sell like merchandise that has pictures of my prints or pictures of flowers, like on journals and things. And we have a forum that people can kind of talk about what things that are disability related mean to them. So I'm trying to get more of a connection with not just my own experience, but with the experience of other people that have disabilities.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. I think there's awareness is a vital thing, certainly, when you're doing what you're doing there. Because my last poetry book talks about my experience of diabetes, and I think you can write it well. But my poetry book didn't manage that, but you can manage it in a enlightening way to educate people in a positive way. And your blog's really good at that. It is absolutely tremendous. So really recommend everyone subscribe to this, definitely. Now, when you referred to be sent over to me in notification originally, you told me about a book you've been publishing as well, haven't you? As well, called Rediscovering Your Story. So,
yes,
I know you've got 3 pieces in this book. I've read 2 of them. So it was brilliant stuff again. So tell us about your experience in this book.
Yes, some of it is about having a learning disability. In fact, I went to this workshop where we had people that came in that have mental health issues. Some had some addictions, and they got a chance to write about rediscovering their story with their diagnosis and just life in general. And one of the prompts that we wrote about was we had different prompts every week, and one of them was the greatest lesson I've ever had to learn in life. So one of the greatest lessons I had to learn with having a learning disability was about that I needed to use certain accommodations when I was at school. I think that was something that anytime that I didn't do it because of the stigma that attached them, it was really hard for me. And the quicker I learned that, okay, this is just things I have to do in my life and become a problem solver, life was a lot easier for me. I also wrote about my journey of liking my hair. That was another prompt that we had. That was a silly one that we had one week. And then we also wrote about our favorite place that we like to go to. And just every week we got a chance to write our stories and just about just different ways and experiences that we have with life.
Brilliant. No, it's great. A great idea indeed. So, where do you envisage your blogging going next then? Do you have any sort of ideas where you want your creativity to lead you to next?
I definitely want to maintain the blog. That's something I love to do. And I'd also like to get some stories out. I have a children's story about dyscalculia because there's not a whole lot of information about that that's out there. And I'd also like to write one about my life with having a learning disability.
Great. Do you ever envisage yourself writing longer fiction, maybe even a novel or something someday?
I would definitely be open to that as well. Yes.
No, I can't blame you. And could you see yourself even like, I know you said before you wrote bad teenage poetry. Would you see yourself perhaps even writing some poetry again someday?
Perhaps, perhaps I would be willing to go back in and write some of that as well. I have a few things, but yes, that's something I would be open to as well.
Yeah, I'm always a believer in creativity. You've always got to keep moving on anyway and push yourself forward, haven't you, in everything you do? And it's like, it's great in your story today. It's like you can see that where you've not let things hold you back and you're pushing yourself onwards all the time. Definitely with that. So no, brilliant stuff indeed. So, okay, I'm going to go onto your website now and I want you to tell people, obviously, there was something on your website I spotted before and I'm trying to, what was it? I know you've got a shop on your website, haven't you, as well? A store.
I do.
Yes.
I have a.
Tell us about your store then. That was the thing I was looking for.
What's in my store? Well, I have a mug that has different pictures that I've taken that's been on. It's on a mug. I also have some journals that has my photography on it, and I have
the brilliantly journals because it's like I'm colorblind, as you know that, but the pink flower notebook is absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I have journals and I have also a notebook on there, and I also have prints available as well.
What's made you want to do these then? Put these on your store like that because it's a great idea. Look brilliant.
Well, thank you. I just had this thing where I wanted to be able to share my art with the world as well. A lot of times people that have learning disabilities have a lot of talent with visual and arts. And I can remember when I was really young, before I got into photography, I wondered when that was going to happen because I would go to art class and I couldn't draw very well with my hands. And I thought, oh, I can't do this. And nobody thought I had a lot of the artistic ability. And it turns out I did. I just had to find what that was. And I found photography.
Brilliant. Yeah. You get it like you look at your notebooks and stuff like that. You've not let it hold you back. And like it's when you're doing your writing and your blogs, and what do you do? Do you go straight into your computer, do you? Or do you have like some equipment to help you out with that?
I'm pretty much able to go right to the computer. I do use Grammarly, even though I am a
I have
pretty
to
good
use
with
that. I have to use that. So don't worry.
Yeah. My husband's also a great editor as well, but sometimes when I'm by myself and I'm just in the beginning stages, I'll use that to help out spell check. I mean, I'm pretty good at it, but I just need that little extra help just to kind of go through and point out some of the errors that and some of those words that I just can't seem to spell. I mean, I do spelling words with my students, but it's sometimes hard when it's you. So I use that. I also will go in and write in my journal sometimes just some ideas. That can be a little easier to get ideas flowing rather than sitting in front of a computer and then I'll just type in the words. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to read them. But
no, join the club. My handwriting's shocking, so I will relate to that. That's why it's got the stage of me nowadays. I type everything in a tablet. I've got a tablet sat next to me, and the tablet's godsend.
Oh yeah, definitely. But there is software out there for people that also that may not be able to have problems with their vision too. There's Dragon Speech. There's lots of speech
Amanda uses
options.
Amanda, my wife, uses Dragon Speech, and she types up on her phone, and I don't know how she does it because it's so bloody small. Them, I can't see what she types.
That works for them. I also work with visually impaired students where they use JAWS and things like that. And there's a lot of options out there for people with their disabilities to be able to access some software.
No, great stuff. Okay, what we'll do, we'll wrap up part one. I want to give you a time to read out blog posters in the second half. So, obviously, Michelle, then, that being the case, then, if people want to find out more about you, where do you recommend they go?
Well, you can find me on michellesmission.net. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Brilliant. I can put the links with us today, definitely. So, sounds
Thank
good to me.
you.
Okay, what we'll then do is we'll take a quick break, folks, and we'll be back in 2 shakes of the dice when Michelle's going to be reading for us. See you all soon.